My first night at the Walmart Supercenter in Kearney, Nebraska didn't feel like a first night at all. It felt like walking into someone else's shift, halfway through like I'd missed the part where people warned me what I was actually signing up for. The store was dead quiet when I came in. Graveyard shift always looked empty when you saw it from the outside, but being inside a building that big, with that many fluorescent lights humming over shelves and shelves of merchandise, it felt less like a store and more like the world's largest mausoleum. I'd worked overnight jobs before warehouse stocking, custodial work, even a meat packing plant one summer, but Walmart had its own kind of silence. A stretched out silence. A silence that listened. The break room sat in the back corner behind produce, tucked between the employee bathrooms and the door that led to the loading bay. A sign on the door said associates only, but the only person inside was me. Or so I thought. I walked over to the row of metal lockers bolted against the wall. The orientation manager earlier had said I'd been assigned locker 118. Should be empty, she'd told me. But nothing in that place ever turned out to be the way it should. Locker 118 was halfway down the row, a dent in the door shaped like someone had kicked it, once not hard, just annoyed. I spun the combination the manager gave me, pulled the handle, and the metal door swung open so fast, it clanged against the locker beside it. Inside were two items. Only two. The first was a laminated sheet, perfectly centered on the shelf, like someone had taken the time to position it exactly. At the top, bold black letters read Aisle 19, Overnight Protocols. Mandatory for all night maintenance staff 9 rules. The font looked like corporate policy, clean, clinical, emotionless. The lamination job was flawless. No bubbles, no wrinkles, no taped over edges. Someone didn't just print this off and slap it inside a locker. They cared enough to make it look permanent. The second item was a photograph, black and white, slightly curled. An employee stood in the center of aisle 19, aisles tall behind him, fluorescent lights above, the familiar Walmart blue vest unmistakable. Everything in the picture looked sharp except for one detail. His face had been scrubbed away. Not blurred, not blacked out. Scrubbed. Like someone took a cloth soaked in bleach and just wiped the features off until nothing remained but a bright white smear. The edges around the smear were scraped, like fingernails had dug into the photo too hard. A couple scratches went deep enough to tear the surface. I stared at it longer than I meant to. The lamination sheet made sense in a corporate training way. But the photograph, the ruined face, it felt personal. I pulled the laminated rules out and held them in my hand. The plastic was colder than the locker should have been, like it had been stored in a freezer before someone placed it in there. Before I could read the rules, the break room door clicked open. A man stepped inside with the posture of someone who had been working the nights too. Long spine, straight out of stubbornness more than strength. Mr. Hallbrook, my overnight supervisor. He wore a white button-down shirt and a Walmart badge clipped to his chest. His expression didn't change when he saw me, but something in the way he looked at the open locker told me he already knew what I'd found. "You're Evan Miller, right?" His voice was flat. Not unfriendly, just practiced. Like he'd repeated that sentence every week to a different new hire. "Yes, sir." He nodded once. Not approval, more like acknowledgement. Or confirmation. His eyes drifted to the laminated sheet in my hand. "You'll want to keep those rules with you," he said. "Aisle 19 has its own expectations." The way he said expectations didn't sound like workplace jargon. It sounded like warning. I tried to play it cool.
Sure. I'm guessing these are safety procedures?
Spill cleanup, equipment stuff, that kind of thing? Mr. Holbrook didn't blink. Stick to the protocols, he said. The last guy didn't. Something cold slid down my back, not fear exactly, but a kind of instinctive chill. The kind you get when someone tells you a joke in a tone that isn't joking. I cleared my throat. The last guy who had this locker. The last maintenance worker assigned to aisle 19. He said the aisle number like it was a place, not a section of a grocery store, like it had weight. I held up the photo. Is this him? Holbrook's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He didn't take the picture from me. He didn't look at it long, either just enough to know what I was referring to. That picture shouldn't be in there, he said. But it was, in my locker. Yes. It shows up sometimes. I blinked. Shows up. Holbrook didn't elaborate. Instead, he reached out and pushed the locker door shut with the palm of his hand. The metal vibrated a moment, then settled. Your shift starts at 11:30. You'll clock in at the maintenance kiosk, do a walkthrough of general areas, then head straight to aisle 19. He paused. Don't start anywhere else. I wasn't planning to. Good. He turned toward the door, but before leaving he added, and read all 9 rules before you go in.
Why?
For the first time, Holbrook's expression shifted. Not much, just a flicker of something behind his eyes. Something tired. Something that didn't belong in a retail store at 1 in the morning. Because, he said softly, Walmart only posts a rule when breaking it has consequences. Then he walked out, leaving me alone with the photograph, the locker, and the laminated card that suddenly felt heavier than it should. I looked at the photograph again. The faceless employee standing in aisle 19. The smear where his features should have been looked brighter now. Almost reflective. Almost like it wanted to show something if I stared long enough. I forced myself to slip it back into the locker. Then I unfolded the laminated sheet. 9 rules. All written with the same calm, corporate tone. Rules about appliances turning on by themselves. Rules about voices over the intercom. Rules about reset periods. Rules about not acknowledging anything that addresses you by name. Rules that didn't belong in any store, let alone a Walmart. But I didn't know that yet. Not really. At that moment, I still thought it was all some elaborate orientation prank. A way to scare the new guy, just like at the meat plant, where they convinced rookies the freezer was haunted. I didn't know that aisle 19 wasn't like the other aisles. Or that the last guy who worked there had been erased from more than just a photograph. I folded the laminated rules and slid them into my vest pocket. Whatever this job was, I'd already started it, and I hadn't yet learned the most important fact of aisle 19 rules. Don't exist to protect the store. They exist to protect you. The walk from the break room to aisle 19 took less than a minute, but somehow it felt longer than my entire orientation shift. Walmart never seemed big when you were shopping in it. But walking through it alone at night, the place felt endless. The overhead lights weren't as bright during overnight hours. They stayed on, but dimmer, like the store was half asleep. The polished floor tiles reflected long, pale streaks of light that bent slightly at the edges, almost like heat distortion. Except the air wasn't warm. If anything, the deeper I went, the colder it grew. My cart squeaked as I pushed it past aisle 17. I felt stupid for feeling nervous. It was just a store. Just shelves. Products. Packaging. Air conditioning. Still I kept replaying Mr. Holbrook's warning in my head stick to the protocols. The last guy didn't. When I reached the wide blue sign that said, 19 small appliances, I stopped dead. Because the temperature dropped so sharply, it felt like walking into a freezer. I exhaled. A cloud of white fog rolled out of my mouth. What the hell? I rubbed my arms through my vest. The thermostat shouldn't have allowed anything close to this. Aisle 19 was in the middle of the store, not near a loading dock or freezer section. There was no reason for my breath to be visible. Still trying to be logical, I told myself maybe the vents here were broken. Faulty AC, old building. Poor insulation. Nebraska got cold at night. Maybe the store couldn't keep up. I pushed the cart forward. It got colder. Halfway down the aisle, my fingers started to sting like I'd been outside shoveling snow without gloves. Okay, I muttered under my breath. Definitely filing a maintenance ticket for the HVAC. Then I heard something. A faint buzz. Like a phone vibrating on a tabletop. I turned to my right. A humidifier in a sealed box was shaking just slightly, like something inside it wanted out. I froze. The buzzing stopped. Another box trembled farther down the aisle. Then another on the opposite shelf. A row of hair dryers quivered in unison, the plastic packaging rattling in a soft, irregular rhythm. I gripped the handle of my cart tighter. The fluorescent lights above flickered once. Just once. Enough to make my stomach sink. It crossed my mind that this was probably where the photograph was taken, the blurred face employee standing between vibrating appliances. That nameless smear where a face should have been. Probably just compressors kicking on, I whispered to myself. Even though humidifiers don't have compressors. I reached into my vest pocket and pulled out the laminated sheet of rules. The plastic felt warm, completely opposite of the air around me. I scanned down the list until I found it. Rule #2. If an appliance turns toward you, do not acknowledge it. I frowned. Turns toward me. What did that even mean? They're boxes on shelves. Appliances don't move. They certainly don't turn. I slid the card back into my pocket, shook my head, and kept going. My job tonight was simple: wipe down shelves, restock what needed restocking, clean the floor, report anything broken. That's all. Just do the job. Don't overthink it. Don't let a creepy photo or a cryptic rule sheet get into your head. I got about 20 feet before something clacked loudly on the tile behind me. I spun around. One of the upright vacuums, the display model, unplugged, with a bright yellow clearance sticker on the handle, was no longer where it had been. It had rolled 6 feet toward me. On its own. I felt my spine lock up, vertebrae by vertebrae. Wind, I whispered. Has to be wind. In a climate-controlled indoor aisle. With no open doors. Another small clack. The vacuum shifted a few inches closer, its wheels squeaking softly. And this time I saw it. It wasn't just rolling. The vacuum's head, the rectangular base that sits on the floor, tilted slightly to the left. Not gradually. Not because the floor was uneven. But like it was looking at me. Rule #2 flashed through my mind so fast, it was like someone else read it, aloud inside my skull. If an appliance turns toward you, do not acknowledge it. My breath hitched. I stared straight ahead, not at the vacuum, forcing my eyes to pretend nothing was wrong. Don't acknowledge it. Don't acknowledge it. Don't. Something brushed against the back of my pant leg. I jerked forward, heart battering my ribs. I didn't turn around, but I didn't need to. I knew it was the vacuum. It had rolled right up behind me. Cold air pooled around my ankles, like fog creeping across a lake at dawn. I took a steadying breath. locked my eyes on the 19 sign at the end of the aisle, and said louder than I meant to, "Not acknowledging you." My voice echoed down the aisle, too clearly, like the shelves themselves were listening. I pushed my cart forward again. My palms were sweaty on the handle despite the cold. The squeaking wheels sounded frantic now, like they wanted me to walk faster. 3 more feet. 6 more. The temperature started climbing slowly, still cold, but no longer painful. My breath stopped fogging. The buzzing behind me quieted. I didn't dare look back. At the end of the aisle, where the linoleum met the main walkway, the normal store temperature returned in one abrupt shift, like crossing an invisible line. I exhaled hard. For a full minute, I just stood there gripping the cart, trying to steady the shaking in my hands. Maybe Holbrook wasn't messing with me. Maybe the rules weren't a prank. Maybe the employee in the photo hadn't had his face blurred out by accident. I reached into my pocket and pulled the laminated rule sheet back out. The edges looked sharper now. The plastic seemed thicker, like it wanted me to take it seriously. Rule #1, Rule #2, Rule #3. Each one suddenly felt less like guidelines and more like warnings from someone who desperately wished they could have followed them. I slid the sheet away again. I still had a whole aisle to clean. And it was waiting for me behind that invisible temperature drop. I straightened my vest, pushed my cart back into the cold, and pretended, because it was easier, that everything I'd just seen could be explained by science, poor maintenance, or a long day. But deep down, under the hum of the fluorescent lights, under the vibrating appliances and the unnatural cold, I already knew aisle 19 wasn't just wrong. Something in it was alive. The cold in aisle 19 hadn't gone away. It still clung to my clothes, a thin, invisible frost that hadn't melted even after the appliance stopped moving on its own. I tried convincing myself it was the store's AC, or some weird airflow pattern, but the truth was simpler. Aisle 19 wasn't acting like any aisle should. I kept cleaning anyway, mostly because doing something felt safer than standing still and thinking. I wiped labels, restacked boxes, logged damaged items into the handheld scanner. My fingers were still stiff from the cold when I pushed my maintenance cart toward the far end of the aisle. The wheels squeaked a familiar, normal sound. Good. Normal was good. But the aisle wasn't normal. Not anymore. I reached the end of aisle 19, turned left into the main walkway, and walked right back into aisle 19. I stopped so fast the cart bumped into the back of my legs. No way. I looked up 19 small appliances. Same crooked shelf tag. Same humidifier with a dent on its box. Same tiny puff of cold air drifting near the floor. I must have taken the wrong turn, I told myself. So I turned around. Walked straight. Clear path, no forks, no choices to make. 20 steps later, I stepped back into aisle 19. Same spot. Same tile crack underfoot. Same faint vibration, coming from a boxed humidifier 2 shelves down. My heart hammered now, not in fear, but in the sudden realization that something in aisle 19 was bending reality the same way it bent temperature and motion. I pushed the cart again. Faster this time. Almost jogging. Shelves blurred past. I saw the aisle end approaching, and then the beginning snapped into place in front of me again like a bad film splice. A loop. I was stuck in a loop. My breath fogged the air. My palms went slick inside my gloves. That vibrating appliance from earlier buzzed louder now, as if reacting to my panic. The entire aisle seemed to hum in response, like it was aware of me. That's when the laminated rules flashed into my mind. I yanked the sheet from my vest pocket. Rule #4. If you find yourself returning to the same position more than once, stand still until the aisle resets. Stand still. In this aisle? I didn't want to, but the alternative was walking forever in a supermarket Möbius strip until something worse than cold air or moving appliances showed up. So I planted my feet on the tile, closed my eyes, waited. At first nothing. Then the air shifted. A faint pull, like the aisle inhaled. The lights flickered, not off, more like sideways, as if light had briefly been rerouted somewhere else. The boxes on the shelves jittered. The whole aisle flicked like a video buffering. Then, a sharp, silent lurch. Everything snapped forward half a second. The cold air disappeared. The humming stopped. I opened my eyes cautiously. I was standing at the true end of aisle 19 now. The real one, the one that led into the main walkway. No loop. No distortion. Just a normal aisle again. I exhaled, shaky and uneven. That's what you meant. I whispered to the laminated card, by reset. The rules weren't exaggerations like I'd assumed. They weren't pranks. They were the only reason I hadn't gone insane or vanished into whatever space the aisle had folded into. I pushed my cart out into the central walkway. My legs felt light, almost rubbery. I had to resist the urge to check behind me every 2 steps. But when I did look back, aisle 19 was still. Silent, but the dome security camera above it, one of those black Walmart bubbles that shouldn't move, was angled downward toward me, watching me leave. As if the aisle wasn't done with me. Not yet. The aisle had reset. The cold had eased. And for the first time since clocking in, I felt like I could breathe again. That lasted maybe 2 minutes. At 1:13 a.m. the store's PA system clicked on. A sharp pop. A crackle. Then silence. Walmart doesn't use announcements during overnight shift. No music. No reminders. No paging. Corporate policy. So when the speakers above me buzzed to life, every hair on my arms stood up. A soft voice came through, thin, shaky, but unmistakably familiar. "Evan, sweetheart, can you hear me?" I froze. My mother's voice. Except that was impossible. She lived 2 states away and had no idea what aisle I was in, let alone the PA frequency of this Walmart. I took 1 step back. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The speaker crackled again. "Honey, come to the stockroom. We need you." My hand trembled as I reached for the laminated sheet. Rule #6. If you hear a familiar voice on the PA system, it is not real. Do not leave aisle 19. Before I could even process the rule, a second voice replaced my mother's. "Ev, it's me." My stomach dropped. "Amber." I hadn't heard her voice in months, not since our last conversation ended with both of us pretending we were better as friends. But the voice on the PA wasn't angry. Or nostalgic. It was begging. "Please just come to the stockroom. Hurry." I gripped the metal shelf so hard the edge dug a line into my palm. "This isn't real," I muttered. "This isn't real." Then another voice came through. A deep one. Familiar in a way that made my shoulders tense. "Mr. Hendricks. My old boss from the auto shop. A man who'd fired me after 3 years for showing up late twice." "Miller," his voice barked. "Stop screwing around and get to the stockroom." The aisle lights flickered. The PA system crackled again, louder this time, as if someone were turning the gain knob all the way up. And then, footsteps. Not real footsteps, PA footsteps. Echoing through the speakers, sequential, traveling. 1 aisle over. Then along the central walkway. Then right behind the wall of aisle 19, like whoever or whatever was holding the microphone was walking the store searching for me. "Evan." A new voice now. My high school history teacher. Dead for 10 years. Come to the stockroom, we need you. My lungs tightened. Every instinct told me to run, to move anywhere that wasn't here, to get away from that disembodied chorus closing in. But rule #6 was clear. Crystal clear. Do not leave. Except the voices wouldn't stop. They layered over each other, familiar tones stacking into an unnatural harmony. We need you. Evan. Sweetheart. Miller. Come to the stockroom. The overhead speaker above aisle 19 hissed, then the voice of my mother again, softer now, almost whispering, baby. Why are you hiding? My chest tightened, so painfully I had to brace a hand on my knee. I squeezed my eyes shut. Because if I didn't, I knew I'd start believing those voices. Start imagining my mother stranded in some dark stockroom, alone. Or Amber crying behind a pallet of paper towels. Or my old boss yelling, because I was disappointing someone again. The voices grew sharper, louder, closer. The speaker above me cracked with distortion. Something was coming down the aisle. Through the PA system. Through the audio, not the world. I kept whispering to myself, stay in aisle 19. Stay in aisle 19. Stay in aisle 19. But then the speaker behind me popped again. A final voice came through. One I'd never heard before. Young. Maybe 20? Smooth. Calm. Except every syllable carried something that crawled deep under my skin. Evan Miller, if you don't come to the stockroom, we'll come get you instead. The lights above me flickered twice, then went perfectly still. So did the aisle. So did the air. And I realized, the voices weren't trying to lure me out. They were trying to make me panic. Trying to make me break a rule. Trying to force an opening. And if I broke rule #6, whatever was walking the aisles over the speakers might not need the PA system anymore. The voices finally went silent. No footsteps through the PA. No whispers. No distortions crawling along the ceiling tiles. Just a thin, unnatural quiet hanging over aisle 19, like a sheet of frost. I was trying to steady my breathing when a sharp click echoed above me. Not a light. Not the PA. The security camera. The dome camera at the end of aisle 19, one of those fixed, non-moving Walmart bubbles tilted downward. Except it wasn't showing a live feed. Static washed across the dome's internal monitor. Then an image sharpened into view. Not now. Not the aisle as I was seeing it. But a recording. I knew that because of the timestamp blinking in the corner. 3 weeks ago 1:14 a.m. My skin prickled. The footage showed aisle 19 exactly as it looked tonight. Crooked labels, dented humidifier box, the same cold haze clinging near the tiles. But the aisle wasn't empty. A man stood exactly where I was standing. Same position. Same posture. Same cart behind him. His Walmart vest was zipped higher than mine. His shoulders broader. But the figure was unmistakably the man from the photograph in my locker. The one with the face scratched away. Except here the face wasn't scratched. It was blurred. Blurred so intensely, it looked like someone had smeared the pixels with invisible fingers. An emptiness shaped like a man's head. Like a void where a face should have been. The figure on screen twitched just a slight jerk of his shoulders. Then another. Then, his whole head snapped to the left in a violent, puppet-like motion. I flinched. He wasn't looking at anything. He was listening. Listening to something off-screen. Something I couldn't hear, because the camera's audio wasn't playing, only the visuals. The figure began moving, not walking. Not limping. Being guided. His steps were uneven but purposeful, like someone was drawing his body along strings. His arms hung stiffly at his sides. His head kept twitching, small spasms of resistance or fear. I swallowed hard. Don't, I whispered to the screen. "Don't go there." But the man in the footage turned, faceless head rotating toward the back of the aisle, toward the stockroom. The camera view switched abruptly. A different angle. One from inside the stockroom corridor. The same man walked through the automatic double doors. Then, nothing behind him. He never came back out. The timestamp kept running for several minutes. The stockroom door stayed closed. No movement. No return. Then the footage cut to black. The security camera in front of me clicked again and returned to the present, showing the aisle empty except for me. My throat went dry. "The last guy didn't," Mr. Holbrook had said. This was what he meant. Rule after rule wasn't about safety. They were about survival. And this aisle 19, had taken someone. The floor beneath my boots trembled gently. At first I thought it was the AC kicking on. Then the shelves vibrated. Not much, just a subtle shiver, as if something deep in the foundation had shifted. I placed my hand on the metal shelf. It pulsed. Slowly. Rhythmically. Like breathing. The air pressure in the aisle changed. The lights flickered. A long, low groan rolled through the metal fixtures, almost like the entire aisle exhaled. Aisle 19 wasn't a location. It was a thing. A living, breathing space. And it had noticed me. The aisle's trembling didn't stop. If anything, it deepened, like each shelf, each box, each tile had joined in the same slow, deliberate inhale. Aisle 19 wasn't just aware of me now. It was expecting something. At 2:08 a.m., my handheld scanner buzzed violently in my pocket. Not a normal notification. Not a work alert. Just a single vibrating pulse, long enough to feel like a warning. That was the exact minute. Written on Rule #7. The reset window opens between 2:08 to 14 a.m. Do not initiate contact. I didn't know what a reset window was. But aisle 19 showed me. At the far end of the aisle, where the lights had just flickered back to normal, a faint green glow appeared. Soft at first, like light leaking around the freezer doors in the grocery section. Then brighter, richer, shimmering against the metal shelves. A rectangular outline formed, then sharpened. A door. Except not a door. A vertical sheet of glass, frosted and glowing from within, cold vapor misting along the edges. It looked like someone had sliced a freezer panel out of the back room and dropped it here, except it hadn't been there 10 seconds ago. And behind it, something moved. Can. The metallic dragging sound echoed down the aisle, sending vibrations through my ribs. My breath fogged again, not from fear, but from the cold radiating off that impossible green doorway. I took one step back. Rule #8 glowed in my mind, like someone had highlighted it with neon marker. If anything knocks from inside the reset window, do not open it, regardless of what it says. I didn't know what could knock from inside a glowing freezer door dimension. But the aisle was about to show me that too. A shadow stretched across the frosted glass, a tall one. Much taller than any employee. Its shoulders were narrow, disproportionately long. Its arms hung down in jagged angles, elbows bending the wrong way. Its neck tilted. Far. Too far. A human head shouldn't be able to stay upright at that angle. I froze. The silhouette pressed closer to the door, smearing the frost with long, uneven fingers. Then I heard it can. That metallic dragging wasn't footsteps. It was something pulling itself toward the doorway. The shadow paused, then leaned sideways against the glass, its head inverted like an owl studying prey. And then, it spoke. Not as a stranger, not as a monster, but in my voice. "Evan, hey. It's me. Every muscle in my body locked. The voice didn't mimic me. It matched me. Every tone. Every breath pattern. "You need to open the door," the thing said calmly. "There's something you need to see." Its fingers tapped the glass in a pattern. 3 slow knocks, a pause, 3 slow knocks. Exactly like the faceless employee in the footage. Exactly like the emergency door in every horror rulebook they'd laminated for me. My heartbeat thudded painfully in my throat. The voice inside the reset window grew more impatient. "Open it, Evan. Hurry." I gripped the shelf beside me, grounding myself. Cold metal bit into my palms. Then the voice shifted from calm to frustrated. "You're wasting time. Open the damn door." It wasn't my tone anymore. It was something wearing my tone. Something that didn't know how humans get angry, only how to imitate anger. The silhouette jerked violently against the green glass. Its head snapped from left to right, like it was testing the sound for accuracy. "Evan." Now it whispered, raspy, glitching. "You belong here." My stomach dropped, because the shadows shaped the height, the shoulders. I realized something horrible. It wasn't tall. It was stretched. Like something had grabbed its silhouette and pulled upward, elongating a human shape into something thin and unnatural. The dragging sound wasn't from metal. It was from something too long, scraping against the floor of whatever space lay behind that green door. The thing leaned closer until its blurred head was nearly pressing into the frost. Then its voice. My voice softened into a near-perfect imitation again. "Evan, please. Let me out." The lights above flickered violently. The aisle shook in a deep, rhythmic pulse. Aisle 19 was breathing harder now. Or waiting. Waiting to see whether I would break a rule. I didn't open the reset window, but the shadow kept watching me. Breathing with the aisle, repeating my voice with terrifying accuracy. And I did the one thing the rules never accounted for. I panicked. Just one step. One small step backward, trying to get away from the green glow. My boot crossed a thin line of blue tape on the floor. I hadn't noticed all night. A boundary. The moment my heel touched down, a cold wave burst through the aisle like a pressure change in an airplane cabin. My laminated rules sheet fluttered in my hand. Then I saw it in bold print I had skimmed earlier, Rule #3. Do not step past the blue tape after midnight. Too late. The overhead lights changed instantly. The soft yellow-white glow of Walmart fluorescents washed into a blue-gray tint, like someone had draped a film over the entire world. Colors drained. Shadows stretched. Even the air smelled different, like freezer burn and wet metal. The reset window behind me hissed. The silhouette inside twitched excitedly, as if sensing the rule I'd broken. The aisle rumbled, not breathing, now awakening. Then I heard wheels, squeaking, approaching. From the stockroom hallway, a store cart rolled out on its own. No employee pushed it. No motor. Nothing. It glided straight toward me and stopped at my feet. On the wire rack was a single plastic bag, sealed and labeled with a barcode sticker. My stomach dropped when I read it. Replacement Miller, Evan, aisle 19. My name. Typed neatly. Professionally. As if someone had filled out a work order for me. I swallowed hard. What the hell does that mean? The handheld device in my pocket buzzed again. This time with a scan prompt flashing: inbound item, awaits employee confirmation. Scan to complete transfer. Transfer. The word made my skin crawl. Rule #9 surfaced in my mind, suddenly clearer than every other rule. If you see your own name on an inbound item, do not scan it. Leave the aisle immediately. My pulse pounded in my ears. The air thickened. pressing against my ribs. I should run. Sprint. Get out before. Something touched the back of my shoulder. Not warm, not human. Cold, long, jointed at the wrong angle. I jerked forward and collided with the cart, grabbing its metal frame to keep from falling. The moment my fingers touched it, the entire cart jerked violently, as if yanked by something underneath. The plastic bag on top crinkled. The barcode sticker rippled as though something inside shifted. Then, behind me, a step, wet, heavy, dragging. I didn't have to turn around. I already knew. The silhouette from the reset window had come through. It no longer needed the green door. The aisle lights flickered in long strobes, illuminating it in broken frames, a long figure. Limbs too extended. Head tilted violently sideways. Walmart vest torn and stretched across an unnatural frame. But the worst part. The name badge still clipped to its chest, Miller E. Not my badge. The old employees. The man in the footage. The one who walked into the stockroom and never walked back out. His face was still blurred. Not scratched, not removed. Just incomplete. Like something had wiped away the human part and left the shell waiting to be filled again. The creature stepped fully into the blue-gray aisle, joints cracking softly. And when it inhaled, the aisle inhaled with it. A perfect, synchronized breath. The cart twitched at my feet, metal rattling. Like aisle 19 had prepared a replacement. Like it had been waiting for me to make a mistake. Cross a line. Break a rule. And now, the replacement process had begun. The stretched figure stepped closer. Its blurred face leaned down toward the cart. And in my voice, whispered, "Scan it, Evan. Finish the transfer." The blurred-faced thing leaned closer, waiting for me to finish the transfer. Waiting for me to become whatever it was. Its breath rattled like a dying compressor. The cart kept twitching, barcode sticker fluttering, like it wanted to leap into my scanner. I didn't think. Instinct took over. My hand closed around the fire extinguisher, mounted at the end of the aisle. I swung. Hard. The extinguisher smashed into the replacement cart, metal bending with a sharp crack. The plastic bag flew off, and the barcode tore down the middle like ripped skin. The cart instantly went still. Like someone had unplugged whatever was animating it. The creature froze, two head jerking sharply, as if confused or interrupted. That was my moment. I ran. I didn't stay in aisle 19 long enough to see what it did next. I ducked into aisle 18, sprinted past towers of cereal boxes, cut across apparel, nearly wiping out on the polished tile. And suddenly, the loop was gone. Aisle 18 behaved like a normal aisle. Gravity felt normal again. The lighting warmed back to standard Walmart white. My lungs burned as I crashed through the employee-only door and stumbled toward the manager's office. It was unlocked. That was the first sign something was wrong. Inside, the office light was already on, and behind the desk, as if he'd been waiting for me the entire night. Mr. Holbrook sat perfectly still, hands folded, expression unreadable. I slammed the door behind me. "Sir, there's something in aisle 19, something from the reset window, something wearing a vest." He didn't react. Instead, he slid a plastic card toward me. A laminated sheet, twice as thick as the rule sheet I'd found in my locker. My mouth went dry. Aisle 19, Extended Protocols 14 Rules. Holbrook finally spoke, voice calm, steady, almost proud. "Congratulations, Evan. You passed the screening." "What screening?" I gasped. He ignored the question. "Tomorrow you'll begin your actual assignment." I stared at the card. 14 rules. Double the number from before. Holbrook leaned back in his chair, the overhead light casting a hard shadow across his face. "Aisle 19, he continued, "isn't part of the sales floor. It's a point of contact. A doorway between our store and elsewhere. He said elsewhere, like a man choosing a word that wasn't quite right, but the closest human language allowed. How long has this been happening? I whispered. He shrugged. Since before we bought the building. Since before the company existed. Then he smiled. A slow, unsettling smile that didn't match the conversation. Employees help keep the balance. Each generation needs replacements. Not for the store but for the aisle. My stomach turned cold. You're telling me employees aren't people to that thing? Oh, you're still a person, Holbrook said. Until you're not. He tapped the bottom of the card. Read your final protocol. My hands trembled as I lifted the laminated sheet. Rule 14, locate and neutralize your predecessor. My predecessor. The blurred-faced thing. The figure wearing the vest marked Miller E. Holbrook stood, straightening his tie. Your shift starts again tomorrow at 11:58 p.m. sharp. Bring sturdy shoes. I felt sick. Because there was one detail I hadn't told him when I smashed the cart. When I tore the barcode. When the creature recoiled. It didn't disappear. It moved. Fast. Somewhere in the store. Somewhere waiting. Holbrook opened the office door for me like a polite maitre d'. Get some rest, Evan. You'll need it. As I stepped out, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The store felt too quiet. Too still. And down the hall back in the direction of aisle 19. I saw a faint blue flicker. A door starting to open. Not the reset window this time. Something new. Something waiting for tomorrow.